right, and welcome to Fast Break Breakfast NBA Podcast. My name is Keith Parrish, and I'm here once again with my buddy through the miracle of computer phone, here with Dave DeFore, who, if you're watching on YouTube, you just saw put down a bowl of steaming, what is that, gumbo? What do you eat?
No, it's oatmeal.
Oh, oatmeal out of a bowl.
Yeah, it's got
It has a dark roux color.
Yeah, it's got a giant scoop of pumpkin in it.
Ah.
A lot of cinnamon.
Pumpkin spice autumnal
pumpkin,
season for you, Dave.
Yeah, a little pumpkin pie oatmeal to kick off the first week of fall. You know, I'm in a fall mood. I'm wearing a hoodie. It's chilly out here at the beach. So I was like, yeah.
Man, I'm jealous. So I think last episode you were saying it was like 100 degrees where you
Heat wave.
It's still summer in Nashville, Tennessee. And also
I had to wear sweatpants this morning.
Dave, you already did your breakfast. I mean, wow.
I know. Look, we're just
incredible stuff.
Well, we're talking Northwest Division today, and
put on your hoodies, put on your flannels. The Northwest Division is going to be the main subject of today's show. We're going to look at each team like we've been doing for every other division. We're going to look at each team and determine whether or not that team got better, which we call butter, or if they got worse, which we call Parkay. Dave, thinking about the Northwest Division, it doesn't make a lot of sense geographically.
Oh,
it's horrifying.
Not. Minnesota is decidedly not Northwest now, but we still call that like it's like the Midwest is Minnesota, right? But I think once you get to Montana, you can, like, if this team was in Butte, if it was, the Missoula Timberwolves, then the Northwest Division,
the Thunder, Oklahoma City, that's not Northwest.
See, now this is why they're actually still the Zombie Sonics.
Yeah.
Is because obviously. Texoma.
That makes sense.
Is not in the Pacific Northwest.
Minnesota's
trees. They're in the grasslands.
Minnesota.
That's actually, now, what if we did this? What if it was the temperate zone groupings instead of just these regions that, you know what I mean? What if it was, the Pacific Northwest teams would be just all of the teams that are wet. So Miami, New Orleans, you guys are in the wet division. Houston, wet.
No. Oklahoma City, wrong spot. Minnesota, wrong side of the Mississippi. I mean, for this is the only division where if you're a fan of one of these teams and you live in the same town as your team, you basically can't do a road trip to see a divisional game. It's like a big hassle. It's you got to take multiple days off of work.
Oklahoma City to Minneapolis, though, that's kind of a cool trip. You go through some flyover states, but Des Moines, Iowa, man, it's a hidden gem.
You can pitch me on a lot of the grandiosity of the country of America and these nice places you can see and the geography you drive through. I'm just saying, if you're packing up to drive 14 hours to see a division play, it's a big ask. I mean, maybe it will be fixed eventually, maybe. To some degree, I don't know.
There's a whole thing where, people want to get rid of conferences for playoffs.
Like the WNBA.
Yeah. Listen, I'm against that because I actually do think that sports and having regional rivalries is a good thing.
Yeah.
This is what the reason baseball has survived is because of all these regional rivalries. I mean, there are a lot of people that only watch the Red Sox play the AL East. That's what they do. It's not that you'll ever get that way in the NBA.
Yeah, I don't think you will ever have a regional rivalry between the Thunder and the Trailblazers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because no one's Thunder fans aren't making the trip to the Moda Center.
Yeah.
They're just not.
Anyways.
So do you think
look,
man, they've been talking expansion, it's coming out, it's coming.
2028 apparently 720 somewhere around there. Well, we're gonna get a Northwest Division team. We're gonna get Seattle back,
and we're gonna get Vegas. Yeah,
but then how do you slice the pie? Then it gets
when
weird.
You realign.
Yeah,
I think that probably Vegas winds up in the same.
Also, you're then going to have unbalanced divisions because 16 teams in each conference. That's not divisible by 3.
Well,
Can we just do 2?
4? What if you did 4?
4 by 4s? Yeah.
4 by 4.
Yep.
But then what if you
as long as it's not a tiebreaker, Dave?
Top 4. Exactly. See, that's the problem.
As long as the divisions aren't used for anything.
But it would be a great time to go to a balanced schedule. And then that kind of eliminates the built-in schedule rivalry where you play a team 4 times. So I don't know. If you modernize and you fix the schedule to where we think it should be for the competition, it gets rid of some of that traditional, things that we like about sports. So I don't know. That's why perfect's the enemy of good.
So
the Thunder being in the Northwest Division actually
you've already hit your perfect is the enemy of good sign. Your quota for every episode done. Hit it.
Got it.
You've already hit your breakfast. I'll do my breakfast. We're getting right into it.
Yeah, let's go.
I got nothing. I'm running.
Didn't eat.
Running on empty. Got nothing so far. However,
what happened? No donuts?
No worthwhile story. I did have donuts yesterday. Of course, it was Sunday. I do have some food related things to talk about, which I think will fill the quota for breakfast talk. Okay. I tried some things that I think are worth talking about. I love candy. Yes. I love sweets. So my wife went to Scotland a couple weeks ago. She brought me back scotch. I basically never drank scotch. Like I tried it like 10 or 15 years ago, and I'm like, whoa, this is not for me. She brought me some little airplane bottles of scotch. I think a decade of drinking way more liquor, it made it much more palatable. I'm like, this is fine. I can drink this, no problem. But the more exciting thing she brought me, not scotch, she brought me candy from the UK. And some of them were like, I couldn't figure out if they were Scottish only or just like British Isles only, whatever. Maybe they're just European wide. No, I don't have any visual aids. I ate them all and they're all gone. I threw the trash away. Some of them were quite good. There were some vegan strawberry things, but I liked the versions of American things that were slightly different. There were these Skittle gummy clouds. I'm not sure if they're totally available in the US. They were very tasty. Nice, airy, soft disc. It's just like a candy, fruit flavored, sour-ish candied gummy. Okay. There's nothing in these gummies outside of like corn syrup.
Are we talking like Haribo texture?
Much softer,
like the Happy Cherries?
More like a Sour Patch texture, gotcha. More like that kind of thing. These were specifically soft, thus the name Clouds with the Z. Right. Very soft. These like nice discs of almost moist, but very nice. But the best thing was actually she brought me these Scottish Sour Patch Kids. Now the flavor's a little bit different. You have a black currant in there instead of a grape. You have raspberry. These Sour Patch Kids from Scotland, absolutely incredible. Unreal how amazing this candy was. Now, if you eat a lot of these like gummy candies like I do, like bag to bag, sometimes they're a little tougher, a little softer. There is some leeway. You don't know how long that bag of candy's been sitting wherever it was sitting. So it's hard to judge an entire region's Sour Patch Kids based on one bag, but I got a perfect bag. And the texture was a little bit different. Yeah. Also, the similar flavors were quite different. As in like the raspberry, never had a raspberry Sour Patch Kid. It was amazing. Black currant, I grew up in America. Black currant's not a flavor I love. Right. I've had it every time I go there. I'm like, I'll try this. Nah, not for me. However, like the lemon, lime, and orange, totally different than American lemon, lime, and orange. In my dreams, I'm like, maybe in Scotland, you're required to actually put fruit in fruit snacks or something. Like it was not the same fake artificial flavor. And listen, I love me a fake artificial flavor. I love fake artificial lime candy. This lime, besides tasting like more like an actual fruit, even the color of it was different. It was not neon candy green. It was the green of what a lime looks like when you open it up and look at the inside. So I was blown away. So full review, Scottish Sour Patch Kids. I would fly there to get more. It was
even their candy is better for you than ours.
I think maybe the candy was a little bit better for you. They're like, you can't put all that stuff in candy. It has to be actual sugar. And
what we call chocolate is not really chocolate.
Also, Dave, speaking of American candy and all-time great American powerhouse corporations, I tried a thing worth talking about.
Uh-oh.
I had the Coke flavored Oreos.
Wait, I
And
thought it was Oreo flavored Coke.
I haven't had Oreo flavored Coke. They're
Oh, they
doing
did
both.
both.
They're doing both.
Oh, I'm not up
Um,
on
not
my
listen.
branding
I
crossovers.
sometimes buck up against nationalism. I don't always feel patriotic unless maybe I'm watching our national soccer teams play. The Coke flavored Oreo, man, I was humming John Philip Sousa all day.
Oh.
It was special. Big fan. Big fan.
Have you ever had, speaking of sodas, have you ever had an Iron Brew?
No, what's an
And
iron brew?
it's that's a Scottish soda. It's an
You
orange
can't fly.
soda
How am
that
I supposed to
is.
fly with a
I
Scottish
know
soda? You can't.
that's the thing.
You can't
You
bring that
can't bring
over.
them on a plane.
Uh,
But yeah, but they sell them in the States and places. Like
Apparently,
you
when
can
leaving
occasionally see
Scotland,
them.
you can only bring enough liquids that fit in a single Ziploc bag. They're very strict at their airports. So my wife could fit three like travel size Scotch containers in the Ziploc bag for carry-ons. Anyways,
My
yeah,
last trip, the last trip I made to Scotland, I did on an old BMW motorcycle with a sidecar, and I loaded up the sidecar with some of my favorite scotches.
that's fantastic.
It was great.
Anyways, those were our breakfasts. After our breakfast, Dave, come our breakfast in bed apologies. This is my chance to make right whatever I got wrong on a previous episode. And it is usually the first time we talk about the NBA, which is the subject of this show. My apology. On last episode, I said that over a 30 game span last season, the Clippers went to 26-4. PolitiFact has rated that statement as false. The Clippers, in fact, over a 31 game span last season went 26-5. So my apologies. That's some fake news. I didn't mean to mislead anyone. Also, Dave, this is not an apology, but there were some follow-up questions from listeners about a story you told last week.
Oh, which one?
Well,
oh,
you were
the
talking,
wrestling story.
yeah, the wrestling thing. You were talking about how you, in your time in Virginia, had taken a Stone Cold Stunner. And so people reached out and were like, wait, did Dave get a Stone Cold Stunner from Steve Austin? And so now you need to elaborate.
Yeah. No. I never took a Stone Cold Stunner from Steve Austin. I have friends that have, though. That did the security thing and they did the run in. And you don't always get to be the guy that jumps in the ring.
Yeah.
But I've been one of the guys in the black polos and yeah.
Yeah. So
but
go ahead.
I have a better stunner story because there was a guy who used to work, indie wrestling is funny. I don't know how it is now because I've been out for a while, but back then, but it's kind of pre-internet, not like pre-internet as we know it. Like social media wasn't real. It was MySpace at the most. There was no like YouTube. There was a guy who used to do a bunch of indie shows, basically fake Steve Austin. And
nice.
Yeah. And we called him lukewarm instead of Stone Cold.
Yeah.
And one of my buddies and I, like one of our favorite bits was we always asked him to do run-ins on our matches because it was fun. And we wanted to take the stunner. And so we would try to take the most ridiculous stunner bumps ever.
I love this.
But I did never
before the internet the internet has actually led to a lot of fraud. There's all kinds of like phishing scams, but also pre-internet, there's a different kind of fraud. And that's just like you could impersonate anybody. You could be selling like
17 doinks.
Well, you could be selling tickets for artists. Like I think this is like a cottage industry for cruise ships, where it's like when the boat gets to wherever in Jamaica, and it's just like, hey, you want to come see Coolio perform? It's not Coolio, It's just like
it's Julio. They
say they're Coolio, and you bought the ticket, and you're a captive audience, and then you're like, I'm not sure this is Coolio.
But there's a lot of that. And and then also like, there was a lot of old guys that you knew from TV. Like I really did get to do a lot of stuff with guys I grew up watching.
Yeah.
But it was also kind of sad.
Sure.
Because they had to do this stuff that I was doing. I was some punk learning how to do it, and they were out there, that was their job, signing autographs and stuff. So like, I don't know. I took a figure 4 from Greg the Hammer Valentine. which was
I don't know who that is, but I know
exactly.
I know other people do.
And Jim Cornette hit me with his tennis racket.
I
wrestled in a match with the Rock and Roll Express against the Midnight Express. That one, that's on the list.
Keith. I will just say, last episode when you said you took a Stone Cold Stunner, I did not at all believe it was from Steve Austin, because that's just the name of a move.
Right.
That's like saying if I got dropped by a Sham God, no one's like, wait, you're playing against God Sham God?
Yeah. If you go back and listen, actually, the way that I'm saying, I meant me as in the royal me, as in like one of these goofy indie wrestlers, one of the guys who showed up with their stuff. Yeah.
I didn't think it was confusing, but
yeah. But I mean, listen, I know a lot of those. I know a lot of guys. Like wrestling was kind of a small world. It's similar to basketball, actually. It's the same way. Like, I mean, like I met Magic Johnson one time. Like, what?
That's cool.
Yeah, it makes no sense. So it's just that's like it's a smaller world than you think, though, is what I mean.
Yeah, that's been the joy of doing this podcast, where it's like I am a basketball fan, was a basketball fan, and then I started getting into things, and now it's like, oh, I'm talking to Jerry Stackhouse on my podcast.
Right.
It's amazing. And then like just running into people. So that joy of it's always very a lot of fun. But for some people, Dave, that fun, that joy, that excitement, that novelty wears off, especially if you're named Adrian Wojnarowski, who he decided to stop.
Shout out to him.
Shout out to him.
For him.
Leaving the content industry, which is the dream.
You know what that tells me, though?
Yeah.
I got to get into some of this NIL money, because it must be insane. It must be so.
It sounds great.
It must be so good. Yeah. So if you're a college looking for a GM, I'm your guy. I'm connected all over the world. Holler.
What do you think this does, if anything, to the news breaking industry for basketball? Because all right, news breaking industry, not really a job that needs to exist. It's sort of like insurance brokers. We're like, listen, I understand that's a job, and I want you to have a job, and I have good friends who are insurance brokers. But in a great world, we wouldn't need this.
That's right.
Like journalism, extremely important.
Yeah.
Part of a great society, you need to have independent journalists doing important work. That's
truth to power.
A necessity to a functioning country and democracy. But finding out who the draft pick is going to be a few minutes before, not a useful thing, actually kind of detracts following the league. Finding out the details of a trade, not actually that important. So I don't know if it matters. Then maybe there's no more checks and balances, where it's just Shamshrania putting things out.
Power abhors a vacuum, right? Like someone is going to get that PR bump, right? Those PR releases need to get out. Those agents need to be tagged on Twitter.
Yes.
Someone's getting it. That's my take on it. Now, I don't understand, man. It's amazing how much information flow we have with no knowledge, no context, no experience attached to it. And people are it's an information fire hose into your brain. And we've just been told that information is valuable. No, it's not. Knowledge is. Context is. The information itself is completely useless. It's a nail with no hammer.
I still have my Woj notifications on. Am I just supposed to unfollow?
I didn't have them on.
It feels weird.
I didn't have them on.
One more news item before we get to our Northwest Division preview. Vince Carter, in the last week, he received his own jersey, City Edition jersey, from the Toronto Raptors. It's a dunking Raptor doing one of his famous dunks from one of his dunk contest victories. The Raptors also announced they're going to retire his jersey this season. The New Jersey / Brooklyn Nets announced they're also going to retire Vince Carter's jersey number this season.
I'm about to get disrespectful, Keith.
Dave, we are both of a similar age.
Yeah.
Maybe this question doesn't mean anything to younger people, but from me, I'm asking you, my peer, Dave, what's going on?
This is too much for Vince Carter. He was not this good of a player. He was just around for a long time, man.
He was around for a long time on a lot of different teams.
Right. It's like Grant Hill, right? Like, I mean, but I at one point, Grant Hill was, I think, a better player compared to the rest of the league. Grant Hill, obviously, injuries derailed his career, but Vince Carter was just not this good. I don't understand what we're doing all this for. I refuse to engage in it. What are we doing?
All right. Vince Carter because of who he was and because of the dunks and the dunk contest and because of the start of his career, was absolutely a superstar for several years. One of the most recognizable
at North Carolina
and popular players. But when he broke onto the scene in Toronto, absolutely was a superstar and absolutely would be deserving of having his jersey retired for what he did in Toronto, except for the fact that he totally quit on the franchise and everyone in Toronto hated him for so long. So like, that's one thing. That like he peaked as a basketball player in either his second or third year. His second or third year, those were his best seasons. He made an all NBA team twice in his career, second and third years in the NBA. And again, if he never quit on the Raptors, fine. Raptors, you can honor him. It was big for basketball, for NBA in that country. Huge deal. But like the fact that he quit on the team, that actually happened. And like the season he got traded, I looked this up because I'm like, maybe I'm just misremembering things. Like, this is a long time ago. In 2004, 2005, like he'd already quit on the team because he was averaging 20 points per game the year before, which is like down from what he was doing. The team wasn't very good. In 2004, 2005, he was averaging 15.9 points per game. Playing normal minutes, averaging under 16 points per game, and the Raptors are like, fine, we'll trade you. You're the entire identity of our basketball team. You've quit on the country. We're going to trade you to the Nets. After getting traded to the Nets, he averaged over 28 points per game. He started playing basketball again. It was one of the most egregious things ever of like, dude, that's just not cool. You're not even playing. Like,
listen,
I'm stunned. Toronto's like, yeah, let's put you on a jersey.
We live in the most participation trophy pro sports era ever. He played there not even participation 5 years, trophy argument. Trade out of town, 3 All-Stars. I'm sorry, buddy. No, not good enough. And then, like, how is he even getting his jersey retired? Now, Keith, you're saying, oh, he did all this stuff for the franchise. Sure.
I'm saying Raptors now.
There like 4 years.
We haven't, and we haven't even mentioned the Nets, which is like
LeBron did more in his 4 years in Miami than Vince Carter did in his 4 years in Toronto, right? Like we can all agree with that. Now he's a much better player, right? I don't think LeBron should get his jersey retired in Miami. Like,
I don't mind if you have an all-time great who comes through. I just don't. You're blessed for him to pass through your franchise. Like Vince Carter, not an all-time great. Also, the Nets situation. Nets, what are you doing?
Well, they're 2 bad teams that are just. They need stuff to put on social media, man. That's all it is. Oh, we're gonna do, retirement thing. We'll build up to it. Like anybody cares about Vince Carter. He's just not a good enough player for all of this.
I would like to recap what Vince Carter did on the New Jersey Nets for our listeners who may not remember. The first year, traded at the trade deadline, that team finished 42-40. The next season, they were good, thanks to Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd and Vince Carter had a very successful season, won 49 games. So 49-33, the first full season on the Nets. The following season, 41-41. The following season, 34-48. The following season, 34-48. He has fewer win shares on the Nets than Kerry Kittles. I don't get it.
Kerry Kittles was good.
Richard Jefferson, much more deserving of having his number retired.
Yes.
On the Nets.
Yes. So I just don't get it, man. He's a journeyman.
I recognize he's a popular player.
That's all it is.
I'm not being willfully ignorant to the fact that he's he was a superstar for a while. He was an all-star on the Nets. This is a franchise that's bereft of a lot of great players. Brook Lopez, still the all-time leading scorer for the Nets. Will they retire Brook Lopez's jersey? Of course not. No. They're going to only do it for Vince Carter. Also, he was bad on the Grizzlies, and no one says it. No one says anything.
I mean,
he was so not good on the Grizzlies.
He was bad. Like, why was he still? I don't know why he played until he was that old.
He was fine.
Not that good.
He's fine.
No, but there were better younger players.
He was great as a bench player on the Mavericks. He hit that game-winning shot and
marketing.
Anyways, I'm upset.
Kids, win a dunk contest. You can do anything you want.
I feel perplexed when I was like, wait, the Nets are retiring his jersey? Like, it's okay if like the Raptors are like, listen, we would like to build a statue to my ex-wife who left me for somebody else. It's like erecting a monument to this guy who spurned you. I don't know, it bugs me. If Raptors fans are cool with it, great. All right, you made peace. You forgave. You're just focusing on the good years. Okay, good. Nets, what are you doing? Anyways,
there's a lot of weird ones, but this one I just can't.
That was my cream of wheat worst of week.
Because I thought it was a mistake. I was like, wait, I thought the Raptors were doing this because I saw the Nets. I was like,
yeah, 34-48, 34 and 48.
Scored, they should do it the same night.
24 points per game.
They should do it the same night.
Let him pick which one he shows up to.
Fly back and forth.
That's amazing.
Yeah, come on. I mean, it's a huge deal.
Anyways,
Vince Carter.
Let's take a break. Before I do though, just a word from Underdog Fantasy. If you want to play fantasy sports for cash, if you want to pick highers or lowers for WNBA playoffs for the NFL season, I've been doing a lot of that. If you want to play daily fantasy, you can do all of that at Underdog Fantasy. Plus, if you sign up with my promo code FBBF, that's FBBF as in Fast Break Breakfast, Underdog will match your opening deposit up to $1,000. That's $1,000 in bonus cash. So if you want to give them a try, just make sure you use that promo code FBBF or click the link in this episode's description. All right, Dave. Now,
wait, let me interrupt because I know this is not a WNBA show.
Yes, it's not.
WNBA playoffs started yesterday, though.
Yes, they did.
Fun.
No upsets. Chalk on the first day.
Really, I mean, that Minnesota game, number one, Nafisa Collier is very good, but got tight. The Aces scored 9 points in the first quarter of their game.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, are they just not going to shoot? And then, of course, Asia Wilson is just ridiculous. But
so I watched the end of that game. I had resolved to watch the WNBA playoffs because it's a thing, man. It's blowing up. The viewership numbers are approaching NBA viewership numbers.
Yeah.
Where it's like over 1 million people per game watching this stuff. Like just some regular season games. And it's like, but my resolution to watch, and then they run the opening day of the playoffs just up against NFL Sunday. I'm like, there was some commercial breaks I flipped over. I did watch the end of the Aces game. I follow the Jewel Lloyd because like she had all those horrible shooting numbers. And of course that's the way to my heart at times. So I'm like, I got to see what's going on here. But I watched the Aces, finally overcome in the fourth quarter and get the victory. But anyways, Dave, speaking of Seattle up in the Northwest, let's do the Northwest Division.
There you go.
Our butter or parquet previews, if you're new here for whatever reason. Butter, since we're a breakfast food themed show, butter means better. It's not necessarily the opposite of butter, but an imitation for butter is parquet. So when every fan base or the front office thinks that they've improved their team, we're going to stare at it and be like, no, those improvements, they're actually fake. We don't care that you feel like you hired some special coaches or you have these young guys who are going to congeal, or if you have better chemistry, or maybe Anthony Edwards is going to level up this season. Now we're more picky and we're saying, let's just look at the talent. Did you add better talent? Are you in a better position to win than you were last season? When we look at the roster and we play this mental exercise, I like to pretend, could this year's team beat last year's team if they were somehow able to play each other? And for last year's team, we usually use like a if healthy. We don't weigh injuries that much unless they were catastrophic. So with all that set up, let's talk about the Northwest Division. And we decided right before we started recording, we're going to go from worst to first based on last year's division. So let's kick it off for a team that I find very, very interesting, despite the fact that they lost 61 games last year. Dave, tell me about the Portland Trailblazers and what they did this offseason.
Yeah, a little podcasting trick to keep everyone listening for the whole show, because that's what we're judged on. Portland Trailblazers. We got to start there because they were so bad last year. They were 21-61 last year, Keith, and they only lost one player, Malcolm Brogdon, who I don't even know if he's going to, will he contribute at all to anybody this year? So not a huge loss for him, but they added some real talent. Denny Avdia, who was basically the only positive player for the Wizards last year, they add him and he fills a need for them. He can play that 3-4 spot next to Jeremy Grant. You know exactly where he fits. That's a really good pickup for them. Donovan Clingan, good draft pick. Keith, you and I, we talked about some of the injury stuff with him, but I think if he can be on the court for them 10, 15 minutes a game, that's pretty good defense. Devontae Graham comes in because they could just use another ball handler and a scorer. And then it's a bunch of guys who are not going to play. But those three guys, I think, are going to contribute and be in their rotation. And Denny Avdia is, I mean, he is a better player than I think he was in Washington. I don't think he's like an potential all-star or anything like that. But just replacing some of the poor minutes that they were getting last year with Denny Avdia is a huge increase. I think pretty obvious they got butter.
Yeah, I mean, this team, we're not necessarily judging them on that record, which is gaudy because they purposely lost. They shut down Jeremy Grant every year. Shaedon Sharpe had a disappointing season based on his health, just couldn't really get out there. I think if we just look at the in and out, I mean, I'm not sure Devontae Graham's on a guaranteed deal, but like when we just look at Malcolm Brogdon versus bringing maybe a position of more need in Denny Avdia. And then I will include the draft pick, Donovan Clingan, who, like you said, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, like I think conditioning is an issue with him, or maybe a question mark with him. But like, yeah, I think it's butter.
But Scoot can't be worse than he was last year. I just don't.
Scoot had the horrible first year. We've seen that from young guys.
Ankle injury. The ankle injury last year coming into the season. It's just, and I've been talking about this since I've been doing basketball podcasts. Like people they overlook those ankle injuries that guys pick up in the summer and in training camp and don't realize how far it sets a guy back. And I mean, Scoot, like, have you seen photos of him?
I don't know what you mean. Look, I've seen a picture of him before.
I'm going to put you on Muscle Watch. He was already jacked.
Hashtag? Okay.
I mean, look, if nothing else.
Yep.
He could play for the Seahawks.
Nice.
I mean, he is jacked. So I think, he got stronger maybe. But he just, I don't think it can be as bad as it was last year.
No, and it shouldn't. And I just think if this team actually played, but this is the situation with this team I had last year where it was like, I can create fun lineups that I kind of like, and there is talent here. And of course, I always forget in the setup to tell people that we're also going to look at who we think the best 5-man lineup is, or the best, or who we think the starters are going to be. They can be the same thing. Also, we'll talk about any questions we have or any fun 5-man subjective lineups that we really, really enjoy. Something I do like about this is like the rumor or the story is about their trade for Denny Avdia. So they used the draft pick that was Bub Carrington. Like that was the main part of it. They also traded a future pick as well. But like, apparently Mike Schmitz, who works in the front office, adored Denny Avdia pre-draft. He was one of his favorite players pre-draft. And this is so relatable to me, where he's like, this is just a player I'm really in on. I'm super excited about it. And then he went and got him. He's like, you know what? Who cares if we're bad and we're traded in, what is it, the 14th pick or something? Like, we're going to trade this pick and a future pick because, like, Avdia, he's a fine player, pretty decent player, still very, very young. He's on a really good contract, which matters not very much for a team like the Trailblazers, who aren't any good, who normally don't have to balance, like, how do we pay this guy? It seemed like Avdia would be a guy who would go to a good team that was really trying to, like, stay out of the first apron or whatever. But I find it very relatable that, like, Spitz was like, I got to get this guy on my team, and I had the chance to, so he did it. I think it's funny also, looking, like, unrelated to the Trailblazers, just pulling back from all the trades the Wizards did, how the Bub Carrington draft pick and Malcolm Brogdon, those were both parts of the Porzingis trade. Like, those were things all that got involved. Like the Bub Carrington pick was what the Grizzlies sent to the Celtics in the Marcus Smart deal all together. Dave, I'm going to try to actually now summarize the entire trade. Okay. This is, I didn't know how far back to pull it. I'm going to call this this is a 4-team trade between the Celtics, the Wizards, the Trailblazers, and Grizzlies. So if we're confused, this is the Kristaps Porzingis, Marcus Smart, Tyus Jones thing. And then after that, there was a Robert Williams, Drew Holiday, Malcolm Brogdon. So here's the final return. The Celtics sent Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, Danilo Gallinari, Robert Williams, Mike Muscala, the draft rights to Julian Phillips, and an unprotected 2029 first for Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis.
For a title.
And a title. It's pretty good.
Is Brad Stevens too good at this job?
Maybe. That's pretty good.
God.
The Grizzlies piece of that, they sent the draft rights to Bub Carrington, the draft rights to Marcus Sasser, who the Celtics turned into maybe cash or something. I'm not sure. And then Tyus Jones to the Wizards for Marcus Smart. So the Grizzlies draft rights for Bub Carrington, draft rights for Marcus Sasser, and Tyus Jones for Marcus Smart. Didn't work out last year. No. Jury's still out. We'll see.
We'll see what they trade him for.
The Wizards. Now, this might be controversial. Now, the Porzingis thing was a sign and trade. So that's why the return wasn't a lot. Yeah. But the Wizards send out Kristaps Porzingis and Denny Avdia for Bub Carrington. And 1 season of Tyus Jones. Is that they got 1 season of Tyus Jones and Bub Carrington.
What if Bub is really good?
I don't think I'm missing anything there, but that's the return. Oh, they also got Malcolm Brogdon, which is have you ever bought a ticket on like from Ticketmaster and you're like, worst case scenario, I'll just flip this for money? Okay, some people have.
But
some people have been doing
this with Malcolm Brogdon for years now.
Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, we'll get Malcolm Brogdon and we'll flip him for something. Nope.
2 seconds?
Yeah. Good luck with selling that on eBay. After eBay takes their 30% cut both ways. The Trailblazers, they sent Drew Holiday to the Celtics. They received Denny Avdia, Robert Williams, and an unprotected first from the Celtics. It's not bad. I mean, Drew Holiday's better, but like for a rebuild, that's fine. So anyways, I think I got that right. If not, I'll have something to apologize for next week. Dave, going back to the Trailblazers.
All right. Yeah.
Starting 5, I think, is probably Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, Jeremy Grant, Avdia, and DeAndre Ayton.
That's my guess, unless it's snowing.
Unless it's what?
Snowing.
Oh, okay.
Well, Ayton's not going to leave the house.
I forgot. He got iced in. Yeah. It happens.
I'm assuming Robert. I mean, look, I haven't heard anything, but I don't know what is going on with Robert Williams. Man, I'd like to see what.
I thought I read he was healthy. I thought that's the call.
Yes, but okay. And we're going to assume health. I mean, he would be a guy I'd be interested in seeing. I actually think Robert Williams and Duop Reith can play together because Reith, he at least credibly stretches the floor, even when he doesn't make shots. But I just think having a guy who can move like that and pick and pop and is still an okay defender, that's kind of interesting to me. So like they actually have like, if I had like NBA 2K, they would be a fun team to play with because they have all these pieces that I like. Like they have parts that would contribute to winning on other teams. And then they have these young guys who are like, I mean, Scoot is fascinating to me because I see the Russell Westbrook sort of thing in him. I just don't know if he's going to be ever approach anything close to that good, but he's curious. I'm curious about him, but it's the sum of the parts that I like together. It's not as good as the individual pieces, but it's still,
I mean, is it, what if it actually is, which is the thing I entertain too often. I feel like with the Trailblazers, like,
well, if it was, we wouldn't know with this coaching staff.
I mean, that's one of the big questions for the Trailblazers. Yeah. What does Chauncey Billups do? What is he good at? Also, you mentioned Duop Reith. I feel like my big questions for this team, just based off of last year's lost season, it's like, is Duop Reith or are Duop Reith and Delano Banton real? Like, can they actually play? Delano Banton won a lot of people fantasy leagues last year because he was just putting up massive numbers at the end of the season. But like, is he actually a useful player? I mean, he's a ball handler with so much size. Looks like Sean Livingston out there. Like, can he actually help a team that outside of Scoot maybe needs some more playmaking? I mean, I don't know. Probably when fully healthy, he's not in the rotation.
Yeah.
Same with Reith.
I don't love Banton. I do like Reith a lot. And I've watched a lot of film on Duop Reith. Australia was in our little subgroup, and so I watched a lot of film, and he crushed us. So, it's I don't know if he's an NBA starter, like definitely not.
Yep.
But he could be a contributor. Like I think he can be a.
But how are you even
change of pace, sort of big?
But where are you finding 10 minutes on a roster that has Donovan Clingan, DeAndre Ayton, and issue. Time Lord?
Well, how long? And now we get into like team building stuff, but like the Ayton stuff, I don't know if Ayton is there long term for them. I don't know who wants Ayton.
You could flip him for Malcolm Brogdon. Maybe.
They have a lot of bigs, man. They have a lot. I mean,
so many.
Again, Robert Williams, if he's healthy, he needs to play.
What's your favorite 5-man lineup you can build with this team?
I mean, it's probably Anthony Simons, Shadon Sharp, Jeremy Grant, Denny Abdia, Robert Williams.
Yeah, probably. That's what I'm thinking too. Time Lord or Clingan just with the unknown of being a giant rookie. Well, it's like maybe that would work.
With Robert Williams, like we know about his defense, but the thing that gets lost with him is that he actually is a really great passer.
Yep.
He can facilitate out of the high post. Like he's a great like on the short roll, he can make that pass to any guy on the court. And when you get him if you got him out there with some of these guys, especially, I mean, Anthony Simons can score. And you could see a world in which him and Time Lord could have some chemistry. You
also just have guys that we haven't even mentioned. Like their depth chart looks okay. It's all going to come down to how well does like Shadon perform and Anthony perform. Like because
Kamara was great last year.
I was going to say Kamara and Tybal are both really good players. Like to have off your bench. Like Chris Murray might even not he might get squeezed out of the rotation basically. We're saying
they've done a really good job,
but still question mark of just what's this team going to look like at all? Also because they're expected to be one of the worst teams just when you look at everybody else and maybe every other team has more talent. Let's go to the next squad based on order of finish last season. That is the Utah Jazz. The Jazz in the offseason didn't do a lot. Chris Dunn and Taylor Horton Tucker are gone. Skinny Lupton Jr. is gone. They added NBA champion Svi Mikhailuk. They got Cody Williams in the draft, Isaiah Collier in the draft. They got Kyle Filipowski in the draft. They also signed Aussie hoops legend Patty Mills. Drew Eubanks is there. Because why not? Why not have 6 centers? If you're playing the Trailblazers, every team needs 6 centers. So this team 31-51 last year had a winning record at home, by the way. They shut down Lowry for the nth season in a row. I don't know what to make of their talent level. I mean,
how is Jordan Clarkson still there?
Because Ryan Smith likes him. Or his kids like watching him play or something. This
is a very weird team.
This is the strangest team. My big question for the Jazz is building a team without wings going to work?
They have 8 bigs by my count. If you include the two-way
Who are their small forwards? Cody Williams?
Well, hey, don't forget about my guy Bryce Sensabaugh.
Okay.
Now Bryce Sensabaugh can score. I don't know if he can do anything else at the NBA level, but he can score. I don't think he's going to be there. I'm thinking about their starting lineup right now, and I guess it's going to be Colin Sexton and Keontae George.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
As the backcourt. Do you believe in Keontae George point guard?
I don't, but I don't either. I'm no expert. What I saw last year, I'm like, I don't.
Are you okay? Is it Lowry at the 3 and then maybe John Collins at the 4?
That's what I penciled in.
Is Walker Kessler going to be out of the doghouse?
I assume they start Kessler, Collins, Markin, and I assume the same thing you said because I don't know what the other options are.
What if Drew Eubanks is the better option, though?
Is Cody Williams going to start on day 1, or does Sensabaugh get to start? Does Taylor Hendricks start as like a 3-4-5? Hendricks was horrible last year.
Yes.
In the bits I watched. I don't know, man. This is the strangest team.
It's got to be Lowry and John Collins. Look, John Collins has to. He's just one of your best players. John Collins is one of their 5 best players, and I think you've got to like find a way to make that work. Lowry can play the 3. Those two can play 4 or 5 together. I mean, that is actually could be an option for them if they wanted to go smaller. Because Lowry rebounds well enough that you could do that. But John Collins, like you almost you need him to play because you hope that come trade deadline somebody wants him.
The John Collins question of just like how good is he? Because like he was obviously given away for nothing from the Hawks, and then he put us some okay stats on the Jazz, but also the Jazz were trying to give him away for nothing apparently last year. His shooting numbers, he had the wrist injury, and people are like, oh, that's why his numbers are down. Yeah. I don't know if it got better. I broke this down a lot because I was looking at him for the Grizzlies as like potential trades like a year ago. His shooting numbers were all good once this game stopped mattering.
Right.
Maybe his wrist got better, or maybe there was no pressure because they're tanking. Oh, now you're hitting high 30s of your 3-pointers. Maybe that works. So I don't know. I feel like if I'm picking a favorite 5-man lineup, I do feel like I'm putting him in there though. Like I'm having like a Lowry, John Collins 4-5, and then I guess Cody Williams out of no other options. Maybe I'll say Bryce Sensabaugh, and I'll have the Sexton Clarkson backcourt with Sensabaugh and then Markin and Collins. Like you're not getting stops. No. At least it seems kind of fun.
I don't think you're selling tickets either, but it's I don't know. Utah, this is like the opposite problem that Portland has. They have a lot of guys that I don't like.
Yeah.
They have like a lot of guys I'm like, ooh, I'm not interested in that guy at all.
I feel like Sexton should be freed from this morass of a team.
Well, I mean, I feel the same way about Jordan Clarkson. Both of those guys are in my opinion, high quality 6-men. Like if you're the Clippers, Colin Sexton would be a great 6-man. He just makes too much money.
Yeah.
Right. He just makes too much money, I think, for that role. But Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, if I'm a team and I'm, trying to win a title, I want one of those guys coming off my bench. Like they can just absolutely score, and you don't need their defense in that role. Whereas for Utah, man, they got to play big, important minutes, and you're not going to have a great team if those are the guys doing it.
If Cody Williams is pretty good, which is a huge leap to make. But like, if you just do run a more traditional marking it at the 4, and then Kessler has a bounce back season, Kessler at the 5, and then if Keontae George is all right, Keontae George, Colin Sexton, Cody Williams, Larry Markkinen, Walker Kessler, that looks like a team, and so maybe that's good enough. When we do our exercise though, butter or Parkay, I lean towards Parkay just because like the roster makes somehow even less sense than it did last year. But it doesn't really matter. It's not a big movement. It's just like slightly not better. So not butter equals Parkay.
I would say this.
Yeah.
There's no point guard.
Yeah.
There's no point guard. And they have no wing defense. Like, who's the guy on this team that you say, hey, go guard that guy? That has, like, a team has to have it. I'm Parkay on that.
All right. So.
Also, we haven't even hit the season yet. Kyle Filipowski, we kind of forgot about him.
Well, we brushed past. I mean, his off-court stuff is interesting, and it's not the most, I don't know, it's a disturbing story when you dig into it. But, like, I don't know. As far as the basketball fit, he seems like a useful player, but also there's so many bigs here.
They have 8 bigs.
They have so many bigs.
It just didn't make any sense. Like it wasn't. I don't like he wasn't the most talented guy at the position that like. It just didn't make any sense to me.
Let's make a drastic shift by going to the team that finished 3rd in this division last year. A team that's really good, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Dave, what did the Minnesota Timberwolves do this offseason?
Well, if I can get my sheet to come up, here we go. Good podcasting here. Sorry about that. Oh my God, I lost it. Okay. All right. So they lost Kyle Anderson, which I know hurt you.
Irreplaceable.
And they also lost Monte Morris, who was super important for them. I mean, I think that having like we talked about Phoenix being able to add Monte Morris and Tyus Jones, just having a capable ball handler on the bench is just super important. But But they did manage to get Rob Dillingham in the draft, thanks to a little help from the San Antonio Spurs. So they hope that he can come up. They brought in Joe Ingles. I'm not sure that he's got much to give. I watched him in the Olympics and watched him last season and didn't see much out of him. Terrence Shannon Jr., who fell in the draft because of some off-court issues. He looked really good in summer league. Could get to the basket at will. So they brought in some guys that could do some stuff. Anthony Edwards had a pretty good Olympic run.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone is expecting some sort of leap from him. But Mike Conley got a year older.
What? Speaking of Ant Edwards' Olympic run, what about Rudy Gobert's Olympic run?
Well, that's an interesting thing, right?
How do we assess that?
How will this surgery affect him this season, Keith?
What's the surgery?
He didn't have surgery.
I was like, oh.
Wait, do you not remember this?
Did he take out? He said he had surgery, and the coach was like, no, I benched him. Yeah. No, how will that surgery of getting removed from the France starting lineup serve him? I don't know, man. I do take issue with one thing you said, though, Dave.
Which one?
I don't think Monte Morris mattered to this team at all last year.
I think
it was a big deal that he did not matter, actually. Like, they needed more from Monte Morris
to have there.
Yeah. I mean, Jordan McLaughlin, that loss bigger. I think when I look at the straight in and out, because like the big deal, of course, for their offseason is trading to get Dillingham. And then, of course, maybe Terrence Shannon, off-court bad baggage. If those guys can replace Kyle Anderson, and I don't see it. I know the upside's higher. Getting those rookies, getting a top 10 guy and Rob Dillingham, a guy for a lot of the college season was projected to be like a top 3, top 5 pick around there. If he provides playmaking, scoring from the backcourt, if he can pick up maybe what you lose with another year behind Mike Conley, like that is their path, I think, to sustainability and to getting better. But it's a narrow road for improvement. And Kyle filled so many holes for them. He was just he was essentially the glue guy for anything that was missing in the front court. Anytime a forward or a power forward or center was out, there's Kyle Anderson for you. Now, this team still should be very, very, very good. Their starting lineup, Mike Conley, Ant Edwards, Jaden McDaniels. I mean, maybe Jaden McDaniels takes another leap. He keeps doing these good playoff runs. We're like, oh, he's going to be awesome. And then he does a season where he averages 10 points per game again. You're like, all right, yeah, I don't know. Their top 5 and then Naz Reid 6th man. The top 6 is amazing. That's the strength of the team. I guess Nickeil Alexander-Walker, that's your 7th man. I feel like he was exposed a little bit in the playoffs. He had some good playoffs, but then he was hideous in the Maverick series. His shooting numbers were bad. Their bench, unrelated to Butter or Parkay, just their bench is just a massive question mark. Like, which one of those guys can you depend on? Like the ghost of Joe Ingles, maybe PJ Dozier.
I don't think so.
They need him to do stuff. Maybe one of the guys of Leonard Miller or Josh Minot pops.
Well, I actually think Leonard Miller is a pretty good player. He just hasn't had an opportunity. I mean, they're too good for him to get the burn that he needed. But when it comes to rebounding and defense coming off the bench, I actually think Leonard Miller could help them a lot. Yeah. I mean, if him and Dillingham can contribute this year, that's huge for them. That's going to buy them a lot of leeway.
I think my issue is those guys have to contribute. Like, to say this team got better when you're looking at all the minutes that Kyle Anderson played, and Kyle Anderson is good, canonically on this show, Kyle Anderson is good. Asking rookies to fill that in or asking second or third year guys who haven't proven anything yet to do that feels like a lot. For me, it's kind of a push is whether or not they get better. So tie goes to Parkay for me. Parkay. I don't think they clearly improved. My question is still like, is this team, can they build on last year and take a further step forward? A lot of that depends on Cat and Gobert continuing to have good chemistry, and then Anthony Edwards improving. I'm not putting it past him that he can improve, but like when I just look at the depth chart right now, I don't feel like that top 6 or 7 is enough maybe to even get back to the conference finals without some lucky breaks. So
where do you have their starters ranked? Like in the West?
Oh,
right? You know what I mean?
That's too hard for me to do off the top of my head, but very, very high. Very, very, very high.
Second. I think that their starting five's probably, second.
Who's first? Is it the Thunder?
Probably Oklahoma City, man.
Wait, yeah.
That fit is, and we're gonna get there, but that fit is so great. And this is why I love I think Minnesota has such great fit.
I think the Suns starters are really good. I think my Grizzlies starters are quite good. Yeah, that's a great question. Best starting lineup. Is it the Oklahoma City Thunder? We'll talk about that right after the break. Sorry to cut you off, Dave.
Also, Denver is pretty good.
Denver has a very good starting lineup.
Brown,
yeah. So actually, we're going to talk now. The two teams we're going to get to left in this division, the Denver Nuggets and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Denver, I'll do them next since they finished second in the division last year. They were 57-25. They blew a 20-point lead in Game 7 at home against the Timberwolves in the second round. They then decided not to pay Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who was not very good in the playoffs. They dumped Reggie Jackson. To replace those guys, they brought in Dario Saric and Russell Westbrook. Also, Jamal Murray no longer playing for a contract. He got paid. So in our exercise, this is a straightforward Parkay, right, Dave?
Well,
okay.
Also, Vlatko Čančar's back.
Čančar's back. That's a good one. Okay, Čančar's back.
That's actually huge. He's a good player.
Yeah.
He's going to contribute. But this is a Parkay. You can't lose. We did this to the Lakers.
Yep.
I'm going to do it to Denver. You do not get to lose Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and have me say you got anything but worse.
Yep.
Period.
Their presumed starters are going to be Christian Braun taking the spot of KCP. So Jamal Murray, Christian Braun, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic. Yes, that actually could be. They're also in the conversation for the best starting lineup in the West. Yeah, what's your angle?
The Christian Braun thing is interesting to me. Okay. He's bigger than KCP. KCP struggled to guard like Anthony Edwards. Bigger guards, KCP had some issues with, right? Like they would sometimes use Aaron Gordon. Sometimes they use Michael Porter Jr. Christian Braun is 6'6", 220. Pretty big. I wonder if this is a bet on big being able to make up for not being as good.
Yeah.
Being able to be big, more physical with some of these bigger guards. Shea, for instance. I think that this is their internal bet. Also being cheap.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work the way they think it's going to. Just this team already wasn't a very good 3-point shooting team last year. And KCP is a very low volume 3-point shooter. Kind of the Jaden McDaniels school of how about I play 35 minutes and score 10 points. But Christian Braun, I don't believe in his 3-point shooting. At least people guarded KCP. I think this is just, it's going to make the starting lineup worse. And then it just decimates the bench. The bench was already poor. And now they're essentially betting on, can we be a contender with absolutely no bench? I mean, maybe Russell Westbrook is going to come and be sixth man of the year, but they are betting on your guy Čančar. And then it's like Peyton Watson.
Yeah, who got played off the court in the playoffs.
Hunter Tyson, Jalen Pickett
in the playoffs.
Also, Dave, I've said it so many times how I'm angry about the Dario Saric thing. Why did you give him a player option? Why did you give him this biannual exception? That's a minimum player. Also, is he actually good? I think he's okay, but like, he wasn't great on the Warriors last year. And this bench looks horrible to me. And maybe one guy pops, maybe two guys pop. I mean, they had horrible luck with Jaron Holmes blowing his Achilles in his first summer league game. But like, who is going to step up and make this team good?
How are you feeling about Michael Porter Jr. coming into this year?
I mean,
he's out here just asking questions on a podcast. I don't look, man. Be a basketball player. Leave the podcasting to the professionals.
I will say, Dave,
and go work on that. Go work on that defense.
I do have a take for what their best 5-man lineup is.
Oh,
I don't think it's with Christian Braun in there. I think my favorite 5-man lineup with this team, because you can't get weird with this team. Like, right. You're not benching any of the main guys.
No, it's just one
However,
spot.
my favorite 5-man lineup, and I hope closing 5-man, it's with Russell Westbrook in for Christian Brown. You're trying to tell me Christian Brown is a better basketball player than Russell Westbrook? No, I believe in Russell Westbrook. Maybe the big question for the Nuggets beyond can you be a contender without a bench is also can Jokic cover up the wildness of Westbrook? Can he get him in line?
I've told you what this whole the storyline that Jokic wanted Westbrook has completely just blown my mind and made me just throw everything I think out the window.
Yeah.
I am going into this season with an open mind about Russ. I believe Russ can be a good. I mean, I've said this for years. Russell Westbrook is a very talented basketball player. He actually has a crazy high IQ, crazy motor, never leaves anything on the table.
The motor is going to be so important in my mind.
Yeah. Sometimes the Nuggets can be a little too cool for school. And I think Russell Westbrook is going to bring a certain amount of, gumption, we'll say, to the table that's going to get these guys fired up every night. And there's a world in which Russ playing off of Jokic is actually kind of cool. Russ can cut.
It should be amazing.
He's a crazy athlete. He's going to grab and go, and Jokic loves that. I mean, imagine Russ catching these touchdown passes from Jokic. There's a world where this works.
Yeah.
And I want to see it. That would be great.
I mean, just call Russell Westbrook, just size up, call him the power forward. Call Aaron Gordon playing the 3. Michael Porter Jr. is your tall shooting guard. It works. I think it works. It's like the one thing I'm excited about for the Nuggets is dreaming that it actually might work.
Russell Westbrook, Aaron Gordon, snug pick and roll where everyone knows that both guys are headed to the basket.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
So this team's Parkay. That's my favorite 5-man lineup. Do you have any 5-man, any other twists on?
I mean, I like that with Russ. I think that'd be fun. My issue is just, man, I just want less dribbling from Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just want to see, I want to see this team go back to 2 years ago.
Let's get to the final
MPJ
team.
Play defense.
The final team in the Northwest Division are the Great Plains Warriors of Oklahoma City. We call them the Thunder. Yep. Had the best record tied for the best record last season in the Western Conference, but won the tiebreaker. They're the 1 seed. What was their offseason like, Dave?
Well, they suffered some huge losses. Mike Muscala retired.
Gordon Hayward chose to just leave the sport rather than come back to the Thunder.
He quit. He quit.
Yep.
Last season. The funniest thing that you can do during the offseason is to go and look at Gordon Hayward's game box scores from his final run with the Oklahoma City Thunder and watch how many shots he didn't take. That guy was out there getting cardio.
It was a Vince Carter tribute.
Yeah.
From Gordon Hayward.
There you go. They also they traded Josh Giddey to Chicago, which really solved a lot of problems for them. They lost Lindy Waters III to Golden State Warriors, who we both like him. And they lost Keontae Johnson. But boy, did they have the best summer of any team that's in the Western Conference.
Yeah, maybe.
For sure. They didn't get the best player available, but they got the 2 best players that plug right into what they do. Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso that was, to me, you put them together, that's the biggest addition anybody made this summer over Paul George. Paul George is 34 years old. He's not 30 years old in the prime of his career anymore. It's a different thing. They also lucked into Nikola Topic, who was, a high lottery pick until he hurt himself, and he's going to be a draft and stash, so the rich get richer down the line. Buddy Boeheim, they brought him in from Detroit.
Oh, I forgot that.
Yeah. But really the big ones are just Hartenstein and Caruso. And this is going to be the best defense in the Western Conference for sure. Probably the best defense in the NBA because I just don't know if Boston can do what they did last season without Porzingis for a good chunk of the year. This is a playoff defense. This is a flexible team that can play big or small now. They can play 5 out. They can play 4 around 1. Hartenstein, the thing that's lost with him is how good he is on the offensive end. Offensive rebounds, excellent. Amazing passer. Very good at tipping out rebounds to shooters. That dude is one of the most underrated players in the league, and they just, were able to throw money at him and get him. And then Caruso is top 5 connector on the offensive end, maybe in the NBA, a guy who doesn't need the ball to make an impact on the offensive end. And with this defense, with him and Lou Dort,
yeah,
how do you get any dribble drive penetration at all? And now you've got Chet and Hartenstein protecting the rim. So now Chet gets to slide into this sort of not the Draymond role, but the Kevin Durant role where he played with Draymond, where Hartenstein can be the primary rim protector, and now Chet gets to float around and work the back line as the helper and come and block shots from the weak side. I mean, it's just, this team is stacked.
Do you ever think about how, like 2 or 3 years ago, literally any team could have had Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein?
Yeah.
Like those guys were just like, Hartenstein, no one wanted him.
He was on the Nuggets.
Yeah. He was like, but like he was a free agent, and like people like, yeah, I guess sign him for a minimum. That's fine. And then Caruso, I mean, famously, the Lakers are just like, this really cheap contract, too rich for our blood. But like the Bulls didn't overpay. The Bulls gave him that's a fair contract. So anyone could have had him. So yeah, I agree. The team's butter. I do think there's a question mark. Like you mentioned Caruso and Dort. Are they both going to start? Because like, I think it sounds like maybe they're going to start Twin Towers, Holmgren and Hartenstein, and then probably Dort or Caruso's off the bench because, of course, Jalen Williams is not coming off the bench. You're starting SGA, you're starting Jalen Williams. I think I would actually make Caruso 6th man, but what do you think?
I mean, Shea's size allows you to play Dort, and Jalen Williams has the length defensively. And so I think that you can play Dort with those guys. Like the size isn't a concern. Dort coming off the bench doesn't give you as much, in my opinion. Caruso being a better offensive player, you can bring him off the bench, play him with those bench units, and it's okay. Like your offense won't tank. Whereas with Dort, I think you need to couple him with your stronger offensive players. So I would start Dort. And then there might be games where you do say, Shea's got to miss a game here. Maybe we're going to try to defend our tails off tonight. So we start Caruso, but I think I'd start Dort as long as he's there.
Yeah. I think, you just mentioned
you might close with Caruso though.
Well, that's the question actually, before I get to the thing I was thinking about. I was thinking about a question. What happens to this team when Shea misses? Let's put a pin in that. If Caruso closes, so who is your closing 5? Because this is where it gets very difficult for me, because you got Shea, you got Jalen. If you got Caruso and Dort, then you're picking between Holmgren and Hartenstein. Which way do you lean?
See, I think that it depends on the matchup, obviously. But if you're playing, I'm leaning toward closing big. So I'm leaning toward closing with Chet and Hartenstein and making the choice between Caruso and Dort.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm probably going to close with Caruso because, again, I just find him to be a superior offensive player. Again, the being able to cut and connect and move the ball, his length and his size, actually, end of games, I care more about that than for the first 3 quarters. And I know that's like basketball coach talk a little bit, but there's something to it. If I need a stop on one possession and you're asking me to choose between Lou Dort and Alex Caruso, man, that's a really great choice to have.
Yeah.
But I'm probably going to be a little bit more biased toward Caruso.
So I think I agree with you there. I think my favorite 5 would be probably just with Holmgren at the 5, Caruso, Dort, Jalen Williams with Shea, and then Holmgren. This team, we've mentioned the starting lineup, whichever way you go, it's going to be one of the best starting lineups in the league. The bench, all right, you're hoping from a good improvement from Cason Wallace, who had a promising year last year. One of those guys, Caruso, Dort, probably coming off the bench, or maybe one of the bigs. Isaiah Joe had a really good season. Aaron Wiggins, maybe not a 16-game player, but like he's a good regular season player. Maybe he'll get better. You have the other Jalen Williams. Then you have maybe some questions. Usman Jang. I don't love the bench overall. I mean, it's like it's fine to complement a really good team. Like if you look at last year when Shea wasn't on the court, they had around a plus 1.5 net rating per 100 possessions, which is fine. Like then when you add a superstar onto the court, you get 10 points per 100 better. That makes you a great team. My question is, if SGA misses any games at all, is this team good enough? And I do think that's a huge question because they really lack playmaking and ball handling outside of Shea. I looked at it last year. So last year, Shea played 75 games, which is extremely high for a superstar. Do you want to guess the record in the 7 games he missed?
3 and 4?
2 and 5.
Ooh.
So like, just looking at it on paper, I'm like, you got a ton of amazing defensive options. But if Shea doesn't play, can you get enough offense to be good enough?
I think Jalen Williams, if you look at the way they used them down the stretch last year, number one, easy to forget, last year was year 2 for Jalen Williams, right? So he's coming into his 3rd season. I'm expecting a pretty big jump from him. He had a disappointing playoff run, but the sample size of last regular season, I kind of trust that. Down the stretch of games, when teams were taking away Shea, Jalen Williams was the guy. Like he was number one off the dribble, like making things happen. And I think that their ability to stagger those two guys is actually one of their superpowers. This is going to be how they use Chet and Hartenstein too. I think that they're going to start a lot of games big and they're going to close a lot of games big, but I bet they're playing one big quite often, or at least Chet or Hartenstein quite often, during those games. So I think that they're going to do a lot of these second units with Jalen Williams. And then when you get the games where Shea is out, hey, Kason Wallace, we need more from you. But it's going to be the Jalen Williams show. It's just how much better is Jalen Williams going to be in year 3 than year 2? I think it'd probably be a lot better.
Yeah, he definitely. That's even maybe an undercovered aspect of like their year-to-year improvement is saying, and usually year 2 to year 3, it's a big jump for guys that good. So yeah, he could just be, if he keeps developing to becoming like his own all-star
from year 1 to 2, right?
Amazing.
And so maybe we're discounting it.
So to wrap up the division, we were in agreement on each team. The Thunder, butter.
Oh,
the Nuggets, Parkay.
Butter rest.
The Trailblazer, the Timberwolves, slightly Parkay, almost as tie. The Jazz, well, what are you doing? Just confused look. Well, I guess Parkay. And then the Trailblazers, butter, because why not? Finally, Dave, let's wrap up the show with a single listener submitted question. This is the croissant questioner.
Are you going to finish that croissant?
David Smith asks, which division in each conference will have the most playoff teams? I think, Dave, for me, in the West, the safest bet is the Pacific Division.
Agreed.
Because
all 5 teams should make it.
In all of these divisions, we're looking at like in the Northwest Division, we have 3 elite teams, and then Trailblazers and Jazz. Odds are low they make it. Southwest, all right. I don't know if they're like Mavericks, elite, but also Grizzlies, Pelicans. Their fan base is certainly expecting playoffs. They'd be devastated if not. Rockets. All right, I think they have a good chance. So it comes down to me between the Southwest. It's like, what's more likely? Or maybe even Spurs. Am I overlooking Wembanyama? So like, are the Rockets and Spurs more likely to make the playoffs than the Lakers and Clippers?
Are we saying
or the Warriors, Suns, Kings?
Play in here? Because
no, I am not. I am including I'm guessing which teams emerge from the play-in. So when we get to our final 8, maybe it's safer to say the Southwest because I trust the Mavericks and Grizzlies maybe more.
I go Pacific.
Yeah, I think it's more likely if any division is going to get 4. Yeah. I find it most likely that it's like Suns, Kings, Lakers, Warriors. I think that's most likely. Looking at the Eastern Conference,
Atlantic for sure.
You think?
3 guaranteed playoff teams, and if the Raptors make a a play-in run. But like the Bulls and Pistons don't have a chance.
This is what's funny to me looking at the East. I don't see how any division gets 4.
Right.
I think there's a world where the Pacific or the Southwest get 4, but like
the 10th seed is going to be
one of
the Wizards, the Hornets, the Pistons, the Bulls, the Raptors, or the Nets.
Why not the Pistons? Why not the Hornets? No, yeah.
Hey, you know what? I could make the case for the Hornets being there. New coach, good young coach. They got a new ownership group. LaMelo healthy.
But that
Brandon
would mean
Miller.
That would mean the Hawks have to make the playoffs too. For the Southeast, the Hawks don't control their own draft pick, so like you got Trae Young, you got some stuff there. I mean, the Central Division.
Forgetting about Trae Young, man. He's too good to
Pacers,
be looked over.
Pacers, Bucks, Cavs expected to make the playoffs. Then you just need the Pistons to sneak in.
Tobias Harris. That's what they brought you in here to do.
Once they do that Tobias Harris for Brandon Ingram trade, no, I guess I would go Central, but it's a great question because like I can't imagine the Raptors or the Nets making the playoffs.
Well, the Raptors and Nets have to, they're going
maybe
to fight over Vince Carter.
I think there's some good lineup data when it's like when quickly Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett actually played. Maybe the Raptors were okay. I mean, it was like post trade deadline, so that stuff doesn't matter. Those numbers are normally silly season. You can't count them. Anyway, it's a great question.
I have no belief in that team.
Great question, David. Thank you very much. If you, listener, want your question to be answered on air, you have to be a Patreon supporter. Join at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. If you join, you can also get in our Slack channel. And of course, there'll be fantasy basketball. I did not post the fantasy basketball signups last week like I thought I would because I might be traveling right before the NBA season starts. So I'm still trying to nail down my travel schedule, but the signups will go up soon. I'll go with imminently because I want to get everybody in the negative fantasy league and get everybody assigned to the fantasy basketball leagues they want to play. So if you want to play fantasy basketball with me and other listeners, that's for the Patreons at the $5 a month tier. So join there, help out the show. And with that, thanks everybody for listening. You guys are the best. And remember, breakfast is the most important thing.
Yeah, never apologize for being G&G. Fast break, man. You understand? I will.